Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Hard to kill. The truth about anti-fragility training after 30. Let me say this loud and fucking clear. This is not fitness for aesthetics. This is not training for likes. This is war prep, man. In a world where every other post on your fucking feed is some weak-ass influencer telling you to slow down, treat yourself, rest, recharge, love yourself as you are. Fucking lame. I'm here to offer you something older, something less pleasant, and something more primal, something more fucking true. That's that suffering is holy. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a fucking pathway to glory. It's a rite of passage, an initiation into self-mastery, discipline, and transcendence. Self-love, real self-love, is becoming the version of yourself that you actually fucking respect, not coddling your inner child, the little fat kid living within because some over-sanitized yoga chick told you you're perfect in all your softness. That's what I think of that. I'm not here to give you bubble bath advice. I'm not here to be your fucking friend. I'm giving you a fucking hammer to forge yourself and to forge your will. This is the antithesis of the self-help victim culture that I'm fucking inundated with everywhere I turn and everywhere I fucking look. This is the return of the initiate, the warrior, that dangerous man with a fucking purpose and the vehicle of his rebirth. It is anti-fragile, functional, battle-tested training. That is my program. That is the Primal method. And it is not just training physically, it is training mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and temporally. And I cannot fucking stress that enough. But let's go over the training side of things. So in training, anti-fragility means you don't just tolerate stress. You adapt and you come back stronger. Your training doesn't just make you look good shirtless. It makes you a fucking human weapon. You're not built for show. You're built for battle, for your family, for purpose, for your purpose, and for fucking survival of yourself and the ones that you give a fuck about. And if you're not training like that every fucking day, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So I'm going to break down the philosophy, the very soul of my Primal method that I've been really creating my entire life and has came into fruition over about the last 5-6 years. The world, I promise you this, the world, modernity, Western society, whatever the fuck you want to call it, the world today, it wants to make you soft. The modern world sells convenience, comfort, and cheap, disgusting, pathetic fucking dopamine hits. Everywhere you look, there's no meaning, there is no purpose. It's the glittering lights of fucking illusion. The Primal method is a spiritual revolt against that. Through the template and the medium of the human body and its ability to transform and transcend through many different states of existence. Training is an ordeal. It's like the old rites of passage. It breaks you down, it tests your will, and it rebuilds you in a stronger state. It leads to a self-apotheosis and rebirth. This isn't about symmetry, it's about survival. Strength isn't vanity. Strength is a virtue. You train to become dangerous, useful, and unshakable. Strength isn't vanity, it's a virtue. Natural law is governed by the simple principle that the strong survive and the weak fucking perish. Now, there's obviously different types of strength. There's intellectual strength. There's mental strength. There's physical strength. but you can't separate them. You've got to be strong in all of those if you're going to take care of your family and survive in any situation. And granted, modernity separates us from how the tangible reality of survival, but there's no guarantee that you're always going to have a government there to protect you. There's no guarantee that nobody's ever going to fucking come at you with a knife in a parking lot. There's nothing in this life is fucking guaranteed. There's no guarantee that you're not going to be on a fucking plane that some pieces of shit from the Middle East try to hijack. There is no fucking guarantees. There is only whether you're strong and you're going to respond to those situations like a strong motherfucker would. And even if you can't save yourself, you're going to protect your family and you're going to take those motherfuckers out with you so that your wife and your kids survive, or you're weak and you're going to get walked over and trampled into the fucking ground by the first motherfucker that wants to try it. I promise. And there's a lot of motherfuckers out there, even in this weak-ass society that we live in, that want to try it, that are looking for weak victims and marks that they can have their fucking way with and take everything they want from them. Don't be that motherfucker, man. The science, how compound movement-based training builds anti-fragility. So I say this all the time. Like, my program is function first. I've even considered like training really hard and doing a show because I like bodybuilding. I respect it. It's a cool sport. There's a grind to it that's like surreal to me, you know. I'm drawn to the grind. But it doesn't really align with who I am on a fundamental level and how my training is structured on a fundamental level, because I'm always going to be a function over physique guy. I'm always going to be a fighter at core, right? I'm always going to be a strength and conditioning guy at core. Even if I'm doing hypertrophy training, I'm still going to be doing the functional training, because to me, it's function over physique. The physique follows functional strength, right? So it doesn't necessarily align with my type of training. And I've tried to classify my training, like, are we power building? Are we powerlifting? Are we bodybuilding? What the fuck are we doing? And the truth of the matter is that it's not a identifiable system of training. It's so anomalous and so unique, and it's so self-created by me and my experience with this world, that the best thing that I can call it, honestly, it's anti-fragility training. I'm trying to make you a more functional human being. That's it. Through mental, spiritual, physical, all of it, I'm trying to make you less fragile and more fucking dangerous and more capable, period. So, number one, how does compound movement-based training, which is the fundamentals of my training, lead to anti-fragility? Well, number one, it improves bone density and it prevents injuries. So heavy compound lifts like the squat, the deadlift, overhead press, the bench press, what the fuck ever, loaded carries, place stress on the bone, which triggers osteoblast activity and increases bone mineral density. So a lot of people don't realize that bones are just like muscles in a lot of ways. When you break them down, they, according to Wolff's law, the bone will adapt to whatever stresses it's placed under. So it's just like a muscle when it's abused and it's trained and it's stressed, it creates little microfractures which then recalcify and grow back stronger. For context, they've done a bunch of like archaeological digs, and men, for example, from Scandinavia in the Viking Age had 3 times on average greater bone density than modern Scandinavians. And it's because it's from horse riding, it's from fighting, it's from working in the fields. It's because they were constantly stressing their bones and they were constantly engaged in physical activity rather than sitting at a desk staring at some fucking stupid computer screen all day and just getting brittle. You don't want to be the brittle bone guy, because then you're just fucking fragile. You fall, you break something. Like, you should be more resilient than that, because in the wild, that shit kills you. If you can't fall and get tackled and get, to fall down hills and shit without just like shattering every bone in your body, you're useless. You're gonna die. You're gonna be laying there in a broken fucking puddle in the first couple weeks. Like, it's just not gonna work. So strong bones equal less fragility, less injury, and more longevity, especially critical after 30 when bone mass naturally starts to decline. So we're all going to lose the war to old age if we're lucky, right? If something doesn't grab us before then, eventually old age is going to win. But we want to fucking rage against that machine as long as we fucking possibly can. And the more we do now, the greater quality of life we're going to have in our later years, and the more vigorous and strong and powerful we're going to remain into our later years. So now studies have shown that resistance training increases bone density and reduces fall and fracture risk in aging adults by over 30%. So that's multifaceted. Number one, resistance training trains you on a neurological level. So half of this is neurological. So when you need to lift something really heavy and use explosive power and explosive force, there's a signal sent from the neurons in your brain to the fast twitch motor units in your muscle, which then attach to fast twitch muscle fibers that tell them to turn on very rapidly. And this process happens instantaneously, and it happens over many different motor units in a muscle. And when you train that, it keeps that neurological connection strong. Now, what happens in old age is we stop using that, and those neurological connections to our fast twitch motor units begin to decay. And that's why old people are fumbly and stumbly, and they fall and they can't catch themselves, because those dramatic violent actions where, like, when you slip on the ice and you really quick put an arm out and catch your balance, that's fast twitch motor units, and that's fast twitch muscle fibers doing that. And if you don't have those, then you're just gonna fucking fall. And if you don't have dense bones, then you're just gonna break your bones, which sucks. And then the other half of it is, if you do fall, you're going to slip on the ice. It shit happens. I live in Alaska. I fall on the ice a couple times every year, but I don't ever break anything. I'm not worried about breaking anything because I have good, dense bones. So that's the other side of the component. So half of it's neurological, half of it's just physiological. It's, if you have stronger bones, they're not going to break as easily. You don't want to be the butter bone guy. So then, connective tissue resilience. Compound lifting creates tensile loading on tendons and ligaments, thickening them and making them less prone to tears. Eccentric focused work like slow negatives builds joints integrity and injury proofing. So a lot of people don't realize that tendons and ligaments, soft tissues, they're not elastic like muscles are. Tendons are a little elastic. Ligaments are not elastic at all. But they are capable of rejuvenation through a process called collagen synthesis. They're made up of mostly collagen, and your body synthesizes new collagen in there. So when you lift heavy, you not only stress your muscles, but you also stress your tendons and your joints and your ligaments. And over time, these stresses create little micro tears, which then are refilled with collagen synthesis takes place, and they're refilled with new collagen strains. And over time, those tendons get stronger. They don't adapt as quickly as muscle, which is, a lot of people tear muscles because their muscles or tear tendons because their muscles outpace their tendons, but they do adapt. Eccentric training especially puts a massive load on the tendons, and tendons are stronger than muscles, so you can load more on an eccentric, a negative, than you can on a positive, so you can really, really train those tendons. Very, very important, because this leads to durability, to where you're not just like, going to tear an ACL every time you fucking slip or something. Like, you got just those paper holding your elbows together. So if you post on the ground, your elbow explodes. Like, you don't want to be that, All right, hormonal optimization and dominance. So we just went over exogenous testosterone in my last, or actually, no, that's going to be in the next one. Sorry, I haven't uploaded that yet. And before that, a couple back, we went over increasing our testosterone levels naturally, and heavy lifts increase testosterone, growth hormone, dopamine levels by creating a neurological cocktail for aggression, drive, and dominance. Training that taxes large muscle groups like the squat and the deadlift triggers systemic hormonal responses far more than isolation work does. So big compound moves create this hormonal synthesis, which not only signals protein synthesis, because a lot of muscle growth is based on signaling. So muscular tension creates a cascade effect of hormones that signal your DNA to start the process of protein synthesis and satellite cell proliferation to repair any hypothetical damage in these muscles. So a lot of it's just signaling. You're telling your body to grow more muscles by putting those muscles under tension and strain. But then it also, the androgenic and anabolic hormones are also heavily released in this training. Testosterone peaks post a heavy lift. This improves your sex drive, your risk tolerance. So studies have shown that men with higher testosterone have greater levels of risk aversion. They're not afraid to take risks, so they do better in business. They do better in virtually everything they do because they're not really afraid of the consequences. They're willing to take risks. That's alpha behavior is what that is. Alphas behave that way in a competitive environment. They take a lot of fucking risks, and that That's what makes them the king of the fucking jungle. You want to be the king of the jungle. You want to be an alpha male. You don't want to be a beta or an omega. Cardiovascular and metabolic health. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity, reduces resting heart rate, increases VO2 max, and when done with minimal rest. So think supersets, rucking, circuits. So these three things, your insulin sensitivity, your resting heart rate, and your VO2 max are the three largest indicators of longevity, right? So if those three things are optimal, then statistically you're going to live longer. You have lower morbidity from everything if those three things are within parameters or above parameters. So it also improves mitochondrial density, which gives you more energy, more endurance, and less risk of disease. So basically, compound strength work reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and even certain cancers. So the first two, cardiovascular disease and diabetes, are the hands down biggest killers in the West. You are statistically more likely to die from one of those two things than any fucking thing else combined, right? That's absurd to me because those are both diseases that are essentially caused by lifestyle choices. So it's insane, right? And then cancer, that's the next biggest killer after them. So, just lifting weights, compound strength work, reduces your risk of dying from the things that are most likely to kill you. And more importantly than that, because it's not just all about living. I would rather die at fucking 50 years old than live to 80 and be wheelchair bound or walker bound and on a fucking billion fucking medicines and having to spend every day in the fucking doctor and have no independence and have everybody pitying you. Like, life without quality of life is not life to me. That's just how I'm wired. So I don't want to be that guy, right? So these not only add years to your life, but they add life to your years, right? Think about that. They increase not only your lifespan, but your health span, how long you're healthy, how long you can be there to play with your kids, your grandkids, do all the shit that you want to do. Be a good example. So number 5, brain chemistry, grit, and mental fortitude. This is huge. Lifting heavy things in hard conditions builds dopaminergic resilience. Your brain stops chasing. What that means is your brain stops chasing easy dopamine and learns to enjoy the grind. You're rewarding yourself with dopamine for things that are good for you rather than for things that are bad for you, like drugs and alcohol and porn and everything else that is, and scrolling social media and everything else that is a quick and instant dopamine hit, but that is bad for you. Why not reward yourself with dopamine for the things that are good for you, like training really fucking hard, which is going to, again, increase your quality of life and your longevity and just your overall essence and energy and power as a man, right? So yeah, we don't do cheap dopamine hits. And then also it induces neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity improves with physically demanding novel movement patterns. So you're not just becoming stronger, you're becoming sharper, faster, and more adaptive. You're able to learn better because the process of learning is a learned skill. So creating new neurological connections in your brain to learn a new motor pattern translates into being able to learn something else, not related to exercise, right? So it makes you more capable of learning. It makes the process of learning more efficient in your brain. It improves your neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt, which is fucking huge. Training under stress mimics adversity. Over time, you become less reactive, more lethal, and more in control under pressure. So this is what I tell people. You got all these guys out there, and, the world is fucking crazy. You never know what you're going to run into out there, right? So people ask me, why train jujitsu? Why train MMA? Well, because, oh yeah, sure, you could run into somebody with a gun. And yeah, is jujitsu effective against somebody with a gun? To an effect, yes. From a distance, no. But 9 times out of 10, an incident's going to happen inside in a confined space, and it's going to be unexpected. So what jujitsu and MMA does for you is your body, if you have anybody that's ever been in a fight, knows that, like in an MMA fight, like every fight I had, I felt like I was fighting for my life. That was my mindset in there. Like, and your central nervous system doesn't distinguish between an MMA fight and Mortal Kombat. So if you're sparring all the time and you're taking fights and you're doing jiu-jitsu matches, you're learning to be calm in a situation that your brain is perceiving as a fight for your life, as a fatal situation. So if you end up in a situation where somebody pulls a gun on you, pulls a knife on you, you are going to be able to respond calmly with logic and and deeper thought processes rather than just emotion, right? You're not going to freeze. You're going to be like, okay, cool. We've been here. We've been stressed before. We've been in a dangerous situation before. And your body is going to be just those motor patterns. That muscle memory is going to be there, and you're going to be able to just go through the motions and defend yourself and defend the people that you love. So that's why training, and on a lesser degree, lifting does the same thing because it mimics adversity. Over time, you become just less reactive to adverse situations. They become easier. The end result is a man who is hard to kill, hence the name of this. You're more mobile because you don't avoid novel movement patterns, and you own them under load. You walk taller, you speak clearer, you take up space like a man who knows he can fucking crush and protect. In other words, you emanate an alpha energy, right? You emanate the energy of a predator rather than a prey animal. This is something that dangerous people, that predators, pick up on. Believe me, I spent 11 years in prison. This is something you learn to watch for, whether somebody's a predator or whether they're prey. There's only two types of people in this world, and they're people that are predators and there's people that are prey. And you can fucking see it, and a predator will always, 100% of the time, go after a prey animal. They go after the elderly, and they go, and just like in nature, they go after the elderly and they go after the young because they're weak and they're easy to pick off from the herd, and you're not going to get hurt in the process. Predator, even if you're bigger and more dangerous than it, that motherfucker's got teeth and claws, and he wants to fucking fight. That's it. Really, he wants it. He welcomes it. He's there kind of walking through day to day, a little bit bored, like hoping that this is the day that he's just going to be at a fucking gas station that some asshole pulls a knife on him. You know what I mean? Because that'll be a little bit of excitement. And who knows? You know, maybe you don't win. Maybe you do win. But in a predator's mind, attacking another predator is never a good strategy because the world's full of prey. There's a million prey animals. For every fucking one predator, there's a million prey. So, and the prey aren't going to fight back. They're not going to fucking hurt you. You know what I mean? They're just going to lay down and beg you to stop and beg you for their mercy, right? We're not prey animals. We're fucking predators. And you emanate the energy of a fucking predator when you build the confidence of a fucking predator and you know you're fucking dangerous. And then you can see that in other people. You can see in other people when it's not a facade, when they're not just telling you how tough they are, but when you can see it in their fucking eyes and their posture and their demeanor that, hey, that's a dude I don't really want to fuck with right there. So your mind becomes sharper because your training teaches you delayed gratification. That's a huge one. Brutal focus and self-overcoming. You become hard to fucking kill. So there we go, guys. That's today's podcast. If you're interested in learning more about this and you're interested in learning a little bit more about my program, what we do, go ahead and go to my Instagram, the Beast Within 9, and shoot me a DM, right? And let's start the conversation and let's talk, man. If you have just some questions about this and you want to learn a little bit more about it, I've got a good printout of this that I can shoot your way in PDF form. So yeah, just reach out to me on @thebeastwithin9 and tell me you heard the podcast and you're interested in learning a little bit more about my coaching program and about what we offer and what we do, man. And let's start the fucking conversation. All right, guys, have a great fucking day.